policy pressures, investment shortfalls, and public trust. What will it take to accelerate infrastructure, attract capital to EMDEs, and align industrial growth with climate ambition? Chairing this session on the tough trade-offs and real opportunities shaping the future of global energy, let's hand over the stage once again to Dr. Daniel Yergin, Vice Chairman of S&P Global, and invite up our panelists for this next session. Over to you, Dr. Yergin.
Well, thank you very much, and looking forward to our panelists. I'm just looking in which direction they're coming from. Patrick Pouyanne is the Chairman and CEO of TotalEnergies. Adair Turner, Lord Turner, is the Chairman of the Energy Transition Commission, and Olivier Peuch is the CEO and Chairman of SLB, once known as Schlumberger. Gentlemen, welcome. We start with a discussion, of course, to clarify some of the thinking on energy transition, and I know there are different points of view, I think, that would help us get different perspectives on it. I thought I'd start with Patrick and ask you the question, once upon a time, Total was Total Oil and Gas, now it's TotalEnergies. How and why?
You know, it's what changed between Total and TotalEnergies is that we define our future not only by being a supplier, but through the demand. The demand for energy is growing, first, so we need to grow to continue to produce more energy. At the same time, we have to face a challenge, which is to have less emissions. So more energy, less emissions. And when you look to the demand for energy, we know that we'll still need oil and gas for more years, but beginning to see less growth. And the energy which is growing, for sure, in the 21st century is electricity.
And you've integrated.
And we decided that we'll deploy a strategy, and the strategy is, in fact, on both sides. The demand of today, which is still oil and gas. We need still oil and fuels, but we need to produce oil and gas with less emissions, coming back to lower carbon intensity of our operations, and at the same time, investing in what we call integrated power. It's renewables, it's gas plants, it's batteries, it's trading, it's going to customers. It's a full value chain. And so we are deploying today 30% of our capex into building an integrated power business, and in 24, more than 10% of our energy sales were electrons. In 25, it will be more than 10% of our production of energy will be electrons.
Right.
So we have reached that with the ambition to have 20% of electricity in our portfolio by 2030. We've built 10% in 5 years, so we'll continue. And again, it's a mix of renewable, gas to power, and all the integration along value chain.
Does it require a different mentality to sell electrons as opposed to sell molecules?
It's a little more complex because you don't store electricity.
Right.
So there is more volatility. And in fact, what we discovered, by the way, is that customers want 24/7 reliable electricity. They don't want an intermittent electricity coming from renewables. And so when you go to customer, you need to combine not only renewables, because they want low carbon electricity, but also some flexible assets, might be batteries, but batteries are limited in time. And this is where, in fact, we made the link between our oil and gas and electricity, which is a gas to power. It's a way, by the way, to give added value to our gas productions. And so that's this, in fact, it's more complex to produce electricity, reliable electricity, and to sell it. But again, if you think in the integration way, we are applying to this value chain the same way that we have deployed during 100 years our knowledge around the value chain of oil or value chain of gas. So it's a logic, and I think it's just putting the company into the future on a large growth. I know everybody's speaking about AI. So maybe we are right in 2020 to move from Total to TotalEnergies.
Right, to get it.
And so the market is growing.
You can say you saw it coming. Lord Turner, an explainer. What is the Energy Transition Commission, and what does it do every day?
Well, the Energy Transition Commission is a global coalition of about 50 companies. It's grown from about 20 just after the Paris conference, and we have companies from across the world. We have Shell, we have BP, we have Petronas, but we also have LONGi Solar, biggest producer of solar PV panels in the world, Envision, now the biggest producer of wind turbines, both from China. We have Indian companies, etc. Essentially what we do is we analyze the techno-economics of reducing emissions and eventually getting to net zero emissions. We work out what the balance of the different technologies can be and should be, and how that varies in different parts of the world. And then we argue for both the private investments and the public policies which will take us in that direction. That's what we do.
So let me ask you about the scorecard. What is going better in your view? What is not going better? What are you optimistic about? What are you disappointed about?
Well, first thing to say is I'm pretty pessimistic about the climate. Let's be clear, we have a global target of limiting global warming to plus 1.5 degrees centigrade, and I don't think we can any longer meet that target. I think that's the blunt fact. I think we are essentially above that already. I think we still can limit it to well below 2 degrees centigrade, but it is going to require an acceleration of efforts. The IEA, International Energy Agency, was saying last year it thought that on current policies we're on target for 2.4 degrees of warming. That was before Trump. I'd say that's 2.6. That's the bad news, but let me switch to the good news.
Okay.
The good news is that there are some technologies, but not all technologies, which are going far, far faster than I anticipated 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. And those are in particular solar PV, batteries, and EVs. We think we are at the stage where in much of the world, and in particular what we call the global Sun Belt, solar plus batteries is going to be the killer app of the energy transition to a much greater extent than people have realized. Battery energy storage has come down in cost about 60% in just the last 3 years. And there are many parts of the world now where if you put together solar batteries, wind, and maybe pumped storage, you can deliver round-the-clock electricity at a lower cost than fossil fuels. And we're seeing that in India, where people are putting together those packages and delivering electricity at $40 per megawatt hour. You can't do that in the wind belt of the world. It's more challenging. It's sometimes more challenging in places like Malaysia, where you have this cloud cover issue. But in some parts of the world, Africa, India in particular, we are seeing the emergence of extraordinary technology combination.
So you see that going faster than had been expected a couple of years ago.
But much faster.
But now, aside from certain countries' policies, what about in terms of technologies or things that are not moving as fast?
Well, I would say that carbon capture and storage has not progressed as fast as I thought. I mean, I've been looking at this for 15 years ago. I was the first chair of the UK's Climate Change Committee. At that time, we forecast significant falls in the cost of carbon capture and storage, and we thought that solar PV might come down in cost 25%. Solar PV has come down in cost about 95%, and the costs that we're looking at for carbon capture are pretty much the same as was forecast 10 or 15 years ago. That's a challenge, because I have no idea how to produce zero-carbon cement except with carbon capture and storage, but we've got to find a way as best possible. What we've realized is that the cost reductions occur fast enough in technologies that you can turn into highly standardized units that you churn out of mass production factories, solar PV panels, batteries, etc., and they come down slowest wherever what is required is bespoke engineering in a specific environment. It's much more difficult in those to get the cost reduction we need.
I look like, Olivier, you're ready to come in on this whole question of technology. SLB is a technology company. Where's, I shouldn't say Schlumberger, where's SLB putting its efforts, and what in your view is working and what is proving more challenging?
I think we are putting the effort in two directions. The first is to align with our current oil and gas customers to decarbonize oil and gas operation. I think all of the customers have committed to OGDC. Oil and gas a decarbonization charter with zero methane or near zero methane and zero flaring, and also using technology to electrify and using material such as low carbon cement to decarbonize operations. So first focus we have is support this by technology, support this by partnership, and we're partnering with a couple of companies to help reach the OGMP gold level 2.0 for methane, so that there is a full integrity of the measurement and then deployment. I know that Total is on that, TotalEnergies is on that roadmap, and we are assisting in some sensors to support this effort. Electrification of all installations, subsea, sub-well installations, so that decarbonized power can lift and produce energy at a lower carbon intensity, and low carbon material that are used across. So this is the first chapter, and I think we have last year identified that we have, by these transition technologies, you call them, for oil and gas, reached about 900,000 tons eliminated from oil and gas production. So that's the first thing, to combine our technology to help the charter of decarbonization of oil and gas for the future. The second is providing support through technology for renewable solution, namely geothermal, which is very relevant in this region, and unconventional geothermal in new region. Lithium, direct lithium extraction, to provide one critical mineral in every region so that we can unlock this lithium supply in critical region where lower dependency to some critical country, and long duration energy storage. Because what I believe that solar and wind can provide a solution to the base load, reliable, long energy storage, long duration energy storage is still a gap today. And I think Patrick alluded to that. I think something that we must and we need to address. Finally, and I think back to your point, we have an ambition to contribute to industrial decarbonization. What I mean here is providing CCS or CCUS solution to the hard-to-abate sector and low carbon or green.
Do you share his pessimism about CCUS?
Yes, I share the reality that the cost of CCU or cost of CCS, cost of carbon, not the cost of storage. The cost of storage and the sequestration has been in practice for the last 20 years in different parts of the world. And I think we master this pretty well, and I think operators know what is the unit cost. The unit cost of carbon capture, because of the bespoke solution for every cement plant, for every steel plant, for every chemical plant, and for every refinery, is different because there is no standard practice that have been used historically. So ability to standardize, to modularize, and to scale, and to break through some of the basics of capture technology so that the cost of capture per unit of CO2 capture is lower. So that's our challenge. Now, we are making progress. Yep. We have been, this month, we will be putting to production the first large-scale commercial cement plant, 400,000 tons per annum of carbon emission abated in Norway. And yes, it's a first of a kind. So now we are working with Heidelberg Cement, Heidelberg Material to know and understand how to scale this to the next level. The same with hydrogen. The cost of hydrogen, green hydrogen electrolyzer and a solution is too high today. And until we find a way to scale, to aggregate demand and to scale, this will be a problem. And hence the energy transition will be much more costly than accounted for, particularly in Europe. Right. And hence it will be delayed to the right.
Right. Patrick, Lord Turner's description of the Sun Belt, as he put it, of solar, batteries, and so forth, I mean, you're out there actually, that's what you're part of your integrated strategy. Does it look as good as he describes it?
Not sure. In fact, we are in both this business through two angles. First, because we own a battery company called Saft. Yep. And what is true is that we are really today seeing a quick decrease of energy storage systems. Yep. Knowing that 70% of the cells are manufactured in China. Yeah. When President Trump decided to put tariff in the US, which was a big market, there is an issue today to deploy these energy storage systems in the US because cost increase for tariff reasons. So that's true. We are progressing well, and I'm not surprised because honestly, we are involved as well in batteries for EVs, and all the billions that we put to optimize all these battery storage for EVs, of course, help us. And this is why we have invested in batteries for EVs. Saft, we deploy it on ESS. So yes, it's true. Having said that, at the end, you can manage to have, the problem is that people are, you know, when there is no wind in Germany in February 25 during a week, there is no way to have a battery system for a week. So, and that's where there is a mistake in this system. At the end, if you want a reliable electricity system in Germany, because it happened really to have no wind during a week, you need to have, yes, wind, solar, you can have some batteries for a daily, to manage the daily, I would say, daily transfer from 12 or in the night, etc. But if you want a reliable system, you need to have, on the top of that, gas-fired power plants and a grid and a system. So it's not, we don't speak about the same scale of an issue. On a daily scale, yes, batteries could help you to manage. If you look to the seasonal effects or to the monthly effects, then you need more than just renewables, which doesn't mean that we cannot continue to progress. But that's really, today, when we speak about data centers in the US, by the way, in order to avoid, and we are demonstrating that to the grid regulator, we are thinking to put some 6-hour batteries, because with 6-hour batteries, we can almost manage 99% of the time the reliability of our solar panels compared to 6 hours.
And you have 6-hour batteries.
And yes, it's possible. It's just that it's more costly, of course. Yeah. But we are in this type of discussion with some, I would say, hyperscalers today to deploy this type of system. So it's progress. And with solar, you have less, I would say, viability than with wind. So it makes, it could work in a better way.
Lord Turner.
Well, look, I was careful to say that I thought solar plus batteries would be the killer app in the Sun Belt.
Heroes kembali di saluran 100. Semua pelanggan Astro boleh stream hero kegemaran mereka 24 jam sehari. Himpunan blockbuster hero semesta alam.
16 seconds. We're not losing today.
Petualang bangsa! Dari klasik.
Sangat setia aku kepada Sultan.
Hingga hero komedi. Hero animasi. Balap Ultraman.
Bersidahlah.
Para hero datang dalam pelbagai bentuk. Dan siri. Hero yang membuatkan kita tersenyum. Stream kesemuanya di Heroes, saluran 100 dan Astro Go. Bila-bila masa, apa jua cara.
Kami keabangan.
Bagi tahu satu kampung ni yang anak engkau tu dusta dan derhaka.
Aku takkan tarik balik report. Betul ke Noha maafkan dia ni?
Dia kena buat apa yang Noha nak. Merangkak, cium kaki Noha. Pasal Noha je, Noha.
Kau bocah! Aku nak ambil hak aku, Noha. Langkah main aku dulu. Dengan mudah kita mati.
Specific conditions. So you're describing the world of gas shrinking.
Shrinking in usage, not in capacity.
So I want to ask these two gentlemen, you have a rather large commitment to LNG. Does that make you uneasy hearing that? And then I want to ask Olivier, I believe you do some serious work on LNG, also kind of where you see LNG and gas playing in the future. Patrick first.
No, again, what happens to the UK, which is a very developed country, is fine. You have other parts of the world where the transition will be slower, will take time. For example, in Asia, where we still burn coal to make electricity. So the first step that you described, which is going from 500 to 300 through gas, coal to gas transition, by the way, it allows us to diminish the emissions by 40%, you know, so that's a good step to be done.
And that's a big issue here in Asia.
And that's here a big issue, because here in this region, people need more electricity. You have growing population, so we need more energy. If we can provide this energy, like for example in Vietnam, through LNG to power, it's much better than continuing to develop some coal-fired power plants. So this is why I think there is a space for gas, maybe not in Europe, in developed countries, which can afford, because at the end it's more expensive, whatever you think. Because if you keep the capacity of the gas plants available, I have some gas plants in France, UK, and Spain. Somebody will have to pay me for keeping the capacity alive. And that has a cost, you know, for the global system. That's what happened today. You know, after the event in Spain, which happened, what happens today? Our gas plants are permanently running because the regulator is afraid to disconnect the gas plants. So today we are paid every day to maintain the gas plants alive just to avoid the problems we face. So I think it's, so LNG, yes, there is a future for LNG because again, more energy, less emissions, and that's why we are investing in this business. And I think there is quite a bright future for that.
I want to come to Olivier, but just to ask you here, Asia is a major focus for your investment, Patrick.
Sorry?
Asia is a major focus for your investment.
Yeah, for LNG, for sure. We are targeting, you know, we signed last year 6 million tons of long-term contract, Korea, China, India, Thailand. I mean, that's the reality. This is the core of the business. Europe is a market, but which will diminish probably. It's because of the Russian gas, so we replace it for LNG, but fundamentally, this is the core. The target is here. This is the region. This is where the population is growing, I would say. So this is where we need more energy. So it's clear. That's why, by the way, we have established, you know, I met you here 2 years ago. It was my first visit to Malaysia as CEO. In the meantime, we have established a gas production in Malaysia. We produce gas. And this afternoon, we will announce a new deal to double the stake in Malaysia because it's just perfectly located to produce LNG and to serve the market.
So your visit to Malaysia is very productive.
Yeah, thanks to you, Dan.
Okay.
That's why.
I'll take complete credit.
So I was so pleased to come to Malaysia that I come back today. And in the meantime, we have invested almost $2 billion to take positions in this country. Again, and fundamentally, because gas is at the center of the transition for Asia.
Right.
Against coal.
So I will not limit to LNG, okay? I think I see gas in 3 ways. First, as a source, natural gas from unconventional, from conventional play, and from distribution LNG or pipeline. I think there are many places where it's not only LNG, where gas is being consumed and being part of the mix. So if you look at the US, gas is coming back, not only because of the energy dominance agenda, but because of a bridge role that it has to be part of the mix for AI and other reindustrialization of the US policy. In Europe, it's all about security and capacity assurance. And here in Asia, I will qualify gas as a destination fuel, not as a transition fuel. And I think our role, and as a technology company, as a service company, and the largest in the region, is to support acceleration of gas development, subsea gas development, conventional gas development in the region. So we are doing everything we can to accelerate fit-for-basin technology, local content, digital integration capacity to develop gas in Asia, the region. Because I believe that Asia will use gas as an addition.
So is this a big area of activity for you now?
It is. For us, if you look at the activity worldwide, I would say that we have all in Middle East and all in deepwater advantage basin, particularly in the Atlantic deepwater. We have gas, unconventional or conventional in worldwide, and we have particularly development of gas resource in Asia region. And if you look at activity, the sustained activity, number of FID coming in this region, Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Thailand, in China, and in Australia, I think are huge potential for gas development. So we are committing resource, we are committing technology to accelerate gas development and gas resource access in this region.
Yeah. So, Lord Turner, when you look at Asia, how do you see the role of gas?
I think it'll vary country by country. I'm less convinced that gas is going to play a major role in the power systems of the future. I think India is a very interesting one to watch. In the session we were in yesterday, someone was saying, you know, India has some targets for the growth of gas, but it's not occurring at the moment. I think we may, in India, in the power sector, see the combination of renewables plus storage, and by the way, demand-side flexibility as well, which we need to talk about as well, beating out gas, and you won't necessarily see that transition. You may see coal plus renewables heading towards renewable-dominated systems with much less of a transitional role for gas than people have thought. But gas is going to, even if gas is less in the power systems than people think, I would say both in China and in India, maybe not in Southeast Asia, it will still be a big thing within the chemical sector. It'll be a feedstock for chemicals. I think that's where the big role of gas is in the long term. If I could just say one other thing, could I come back to something Olivier said earlier on the hard-to-abate sectors? I think we've got to increase, and it goes back to your question, which technologies are going faster? I think we've got to increasingly realize there are some technologies which will eventually deliver us energy services cheaper than the fossil fuel systems. And I'm actually confident about electricity in the long term, and I'm confident about EVs. I think EVs are going to be cheaper to buy up front and cheaper to run. I think the internal combustion engine is dead. We just haven't got round to burying it yet. I think in the hard-to-abate sectors...
That's a kind of strong statement.
I think in the hard-to-abate sectors, shipping, steel, cement, chemicals, we have to realize that at least for as long as we can see, and perhaps forever, there will be a green cost premium. It will cost money to decarbonize those sectors of the economy, and therefore we will not get decarbonization of those sectors of the economy without carbon prices or regulation, and we need to recognize that reality.
Okay, very quickly.
But there is a market for this already happening. In Europe, there's a market for green cement, there's a market for green steel, and the technology that helped to realize this, be it hydrogen, green hydrogen for green steel, or CCUS for
the technologies are there.
Okay, there is a market, but the investor that I am in Northern Lights in Norway is looking for customers to store CO2. So I don't know where the market is, but I don't see much customers.
This is great. We could really now get a real argument going, except we're out of time.
You know why? Just because
But I do want to add one thing that I really do think...
We are lacking scale, clearly.
What?
We're lacking scale.
Right. Yes. But I do want to say one thing, and to go back to what I talked about with Tofik. I think the role of, if the kind of transition you're talking about really means that minerals are now part of the energy spectrum, and the lead times there are very long. To open a major new mine takes 16 years as opposed to offshore. So I think there are other challenges there as it gathers momentum. But I want to thank all three of you for a great panel. Thank you. This has been very informative.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to Mr. Patrick Pouyanne, Mr. Olivier Peuch, Lord Adair Turner, and Dr. Daniel Yergin. Could we please have our panelists and chair step forward for a quick photo? And yes, it is a shame that we had to cut short that panel. I think that was extremely fascinating and lots of great topics raised that I hope our later panel sessions will be able to also unpack and address throughout the day. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a quick summary. The panelists talked about the need to balance the needs of consumers for reliability and consistency that fossil fuels is able to deliver with the challenges of newer forms of technology. And we heard that perhaps a diverse energy mix might be the best for balance for all nations to achieve equitable energy transition. So very interesting. Also, we also heard that the Asian market is the next phase for investment and growth, echoed by Tan Sri earlier in his speech, that now is the age of Asia. So, moving on.